It's a poodle manga tape. Yeah. Alright, let's go over a quick tip for manga. We're going to do vanishing points. So I'm going to just go over my process real quick, and hopefully someone can learn a little bit of something, or make your manga backgrounds a little bit easier, because I have found that manga backgrounds are one of the trickiest parts. So what I like to do is thumbnail it out first. You're basically sketching out what you want in your scene. Say you got a few characters talking to each other. This is your panel. I'll draw it kind of dark so you can see it. So you got two characters talking to each other, and you want maybe a little bit of an overhead bird's eye view. So just really quickly planning out what the figures are going to be standing, and some basic perspective. You got to kind of think about the angles and the backgrounds, but you're not overthinking it at first. You're just kind of doing the thumbnail. So that's my background element. Say it's like a little planter, just to keep your characters grounded so they're in the world that you've created. You don't want to have just a bunch of characters, no space that they're occupying. You want them to be somewhere doing, in your world. So it's pretty simple. This keeps things free and loose. So you're not, if you start out with, okay, I got my horizon line, and I got my perspective, and I got all my vanishing points, it's going to kind of bog down your freedom and your creative thinking right out the gate. I mean, you could do it that way, but say if you have a grid set up already, it's probably fine. But when I'm planning things out, I don't want to be confused by a bunch of lines and a bunch of stuff. I want to just kind of freely draw and see what I can do to set up what my picture is going to look like, or what my panel is going to be. So here we got the one I'm working on right now. The first step I would go for is thinking about where your camera angle is, or where your eye line and horizon line is. So we're seeing this from kind of a low view. It's gonna be like her shin, maybe a little bit above her ankle. I'm just gonna set that in. And then that's your first really committed line that actually everything's gonna be based off of. So you wanna make sure you're pretty sure that you want the camera at her ankle level for whatever you're trying to depict in your panel. And then so she's looking backwards, and there's a vacuum cleaner. Her ankle is the horizon line. So everything in this panel is going to be sitting on the same eye line as her ankles. So a vacuum cleaner, think about how tall that is compared to someone's ankle. It's a little higher. So we just got our vacuum right here, kind of sketched in, and that makes sense because everything is on the ankle line, lined up. And then we'll go and say, all right, got my background here. This doorway is what she's walking into, so she's opening this door. We'll kind of, based off of our rough sketch, we'll find, okay, I want this line, it makes sense to be kind of over here. So that's how we're going to decide our first vanishing point for this wall and this door and this whole setup here, the angle basically of this wall that she's interacting with. So it looks like if her ankle's here, this wall will meet the ground a little bit higher because it's behind her foot. So her foot's here. that means the wall would have to be, you know, just a little bit in front of it. So I'm going to set my wall meeting ground line right in front of where she's standing. I already did that, but you can see how it's kind of starting to look like a 3D space. That's the wall meeting the floor here. And then say this would be the ceiling all the way up here. And then, so this is the door and wall she's interacting with. So we already kind of are feeling some 3D space here. You got your big box building that she's inside, where the floor meets the ground. The ground plane is super important for feeling, for getting the characters to feel grounded. So then I'll set up my second vanishing point. It's kind of based off of the angle of this box. And just place it right here. And then we'll draw the floor coming out of where this ground plane starts. So just a bunch of quick little lines here, and then that way it feels like we got the floor and the ground right there. And you could do some lines from this vanishing point, and it'll kind of be like a checkered box kind of feeling, and it's super at an angle because the floor is so close to, so this is your floor, right? Looking at it from a exactly bird's eye view. This is same shape as that, but it's, the camera is right here, so you're looking at it like that. So your floor is like so, you know, just that tight angle. You don't see it be kind of like just super, what is it, squashed and squished. So that's what your floor angle is. So you're imagining that kind of square pattern on this floor here. And then, so that's what we're getting by doing these vanishing points. A little grid situation. Be a bunch of like super tight squares, like, I don't know, kind of weird to look at. We gotta imagine, fuck, that doesn't make sense. Alright, so sketched out the panel, everything's looking good. Our next tip is thumbtacks. Oh yeah. I learned this from watching the professional mangaka. You just take a normal thumbtack and say for a little panel like this, I'm not gonna bother because it's a little, I could just use these vanishing points. I'm only gonna make like probably 10 lines, so I can just base it off of this point. But say if I'm doing a bigger panel, something that's like takes up a lot of the page, I would just plop this boy through here. Can use the light, you can see poking it through, kind of tricky to get. So just like iron it out. Boom shakalaka. Poked it right through, slightly above the point I established. You don't gotta be exact, but now, boom, boom shakalaka. The rest of this whole panel will be pretty easy. I'll just leave this in there for, this will be like kind of the ground plane. And then this is, there can be a little doorway recession here, so think about that. a little recession in the windowsill zone. So that's just, and then I'd use this for putting in my pencils and for inking, because that way, I mean, it's just a lot easier than having to adjust this point every time you move the ruler. It kind of gets off point a little. So with this, it's just boom, you're ready to go. You can put in all your lines for your background you need. So yeah, that's one tip there. And then another tip I've got is, here, I'll just show a few examples. For this one, when I did this background, I originally had my vanishing points. Like, so my horizon line is there. My first vanishing point is still here. The little dot right there is the vanishing point, so everything kind of goes right to that. And that's just a little too close. It'd be more realistic and a little bit better if this vanishing point was out here somewhere. The further out your vanishing points are, the better. So I had to redo this whole thing because my other vanishing point was like right here and everything looked super squished. So I redid this whole side and put the vanishing point out here, and it just looked a lot more natural. Everything is going there. Can you see that? Everything's going all the way out here to this vanishing point, rather than I initially made the mistake of having the vanishing point here, and everything was like super tight feeling. So that's one mistake you want to avoid, is keep those vanishing points kind of far out there. I was too lazy to move this one since I already had the pencils all done. I decided I could just leave this one as long as I move the other one out pretty far. And I'd suggest even farther than this. That's why it's good to keep your pages loose. I could have this vanishing point on my desk, but I like to have a bigger page, or bigger piece of paper taped to the back, and that way I can move this around while I'm drawing. My vanishing points are going to stay where they're at. These pinpoint vanishing points are a huge help, rather than just having a random point on your desk and then you tape the picture down to the desk. It's better to have everything movable. So yeah, when I'm doing these lines, it's pretty easy. Boom, boom. Makes it so much more simple than having to look back at this point every time you move the ruler and readjust it. So if my point was here and I'm trying to go down, I'm looking over here and then I look back and oh shit, I made a wrong line because this moved. So you don't want to have to realign this every time. That's where the pins come in handy. Yeah, and that's kind of my poodle manga tips for the day. This is my first tip, so it's not that good, but I tried my best to provide you guys with a poodle manga tip.